What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Batter's Eye. I'm Aiden. We got Nate here, and we have a really fun episode for you guys today. We are joined by our first head coach, but I'm not going to introduce him. We'll let him introduce himself. So tell us, who are you and where are you coaching?
This is Skylar Meade, head coach at Troy University. And I'm on our maiden voyage to the Virginias right now, heading to Old Dominion and Norfolk. As I think we were in South Carolina last night, so we're just plugging away. But I'm excited to get on here and talk some ball with you guys.
Yeah, super excited to catch you on a long road trip, maybe break it up for you a little bit. And we'll start by, I guess, taking you back some time to your time as a pitching coach. Obviously, you started off at Eastern Illinois, but then going forward to Middle Tennessee and Michigan State and South Carolina, I mean, continuously, you posted some of the best numbers in these schools' histories for pitchers, both individually, both team wise. What are some of your philosophies to unlocking things in pitchers? Some names that stood out to me specifically. At Michigan State, you really worked with Joe McCovey, and he was someone that flourished in that system. Same with Dakota Meeks. And I mean, just the whole philosophy behind it as a pitching coach, it seemed to follow you everywhere. So what were some of the things that stuck with your guys that you were able to instill in them that led to so much success?
Certainly, I think enhancing belief and creating like good daily habits. I mean, some of the stuff that's actually kind of boring. I know that part's not as glamorous, but I really do believe our daily habits and our absolutes that we do with our preparation, our plyometric work, our long toss routines, how we try to enhance our off speed repertoire. We do a lot of like work to create more hand speed, more essentially just more explosive breaking balls, whether it be shuffle drills, on the mound in the outfield, different things such as that. In this day and age too, we have a little bit more, whether it be video, edutronic, where you can get in the weeds. But I think simplicity has been, our friend in our system, all the years, even now as a head coach who's been, handling and working with pitchers on a day in, day out basis,
Yeah.
even still here in year four. Like, I think for me, we've had talented guys. I think we've done a good job of maybe unlocking the best of some of them? Like you mentioned, a Dakota Meckes or, a Joe Mockbee kind of developed a new breaking ball
Yeah.
in our system in Michigan State. But I think there's guys that, aren't as glamorous that maybe didn't go on to professional baseball that, have done great jobs as well. The Cody Tollisons at Middle Tennessee State, the Aaron Hiders, who was a sidearm kind of invent his senior year. Guys such as that people don't really talk about. I enjoy working with those guys too. But in the end, I think you're trying to create obviously an identity for your staff, in terms of how they work, what they look like, what their presentation is to the opponents. But you also just have to realize like you can unlock and figure something out at any point in time as a pitcher, in my opinion, whether that be a new pitch, whether that be, changing where you're at on the rubber, whether it be a delivery alteration. Like to me, if you're just constantly putting in work and trying to find things that are maybe outside the box to improve, that's my job. That's our job. That's the player's job. And, in our system, we promote that. We showcase that. We give them data all the time that tells them, hey, this is really good, or maybe this is not. And for me, it's certainly been helpful. And look, we're not perfect. There's things that even this year that we're doing really well. There's things that we have to do better as we embark on the second half. But one thing for us, we're going to coach them every single day to try to get the best out of each and every guy.
Yeah, for sure. And before we move on to, I know Nate has something that he wants us to kind of talk about as you spoke about both handling pitching duties and head coaching duties. But just something that I noticed, like I said, like as a stat head, the K per nine stat went up everywhere. And interestingly enough, in a game where seemingly velocity is starting to kind of dominate, you've done it with the breaking stuff and the chasing and whiff rates. And I mean, is that kind of your goal? I know, obviously, you talked about developing extra breaking pitches and getting the most stuff out of these guys. But how have you led to that adapting into today's game? Because obviously that's changed so much from, especially even when you started.
Yeah, it has changed a lot. It's kind of astonishing, just even stylistically, right? Like 18 years ago when I got, and of course I played, but like when I got into
Yeah.
coaching 18 years ago, it's, hey, keep the ball down, do this, do that, need to throw a lot of fastballs. And you look at the numbers, and I know that you do just by the questions you've asked, like the usage of fastballs is certainly less in professional baseball, which has trickled down to college baseball. Um, I think that uh, it's a constant evolution, and we don't try to force it with the strikeout stuff that has been fortunate enough to happen everywhere we've been. I just think it's a byproduct of guys knowing what they're really good at, and maybe more focusing on that than trying to be. I'll give an example. Everybody wants to throw 5, 6 pitches. They all want to be Yu Darvish, and the reality is, let's have two great pitches. And if we're fortunate enough to develop a third, or even once in a while a fourth, that's great. But really master what it is that's going to make you successful. And I think when guys do that and somewhat dummy it down, I think success and the ability to get hitters out on a more common basis follows.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great way to put it in comparison, especially with the Yu Darvish comparison, because there's only even so many major league pitchers that can command six pitches. So it's a lot harder for a college guy with a lot less experience to do the same thing.
You're 100% right on that. Even though they'll all come in and tell you they got it all, it's numbers and obviously what the hitter shows you against it, I think ends up telling you the answers to the test.
For sure. Nate.
So basically, like Aiden said, you've been a pitching coach your whole coaching career. You knew nothing but pitching, but then in 2022, you begin your head coaching career at Troy. You have 109 wins your first three seasons. That's the most in a Troy baseball coach history. So it's like you made the right switch. I just want you to talk about what's the biggest switch between pitching coach and then being a full-time head coach.
Well, I think that the one thing that you have to balance a lot, and I talk about this openly to our players and stuff like that, like, even though, you're working with these guys daily, in the end, you're the one that makes a decision on, who goes in, who doesn't. And that can be a tough thing, when you're trying to improve a guy, but maybe, he's not getting the run that he wants. And um, while that's a reality, I think you just have to hit it face on, and you have to be very honest with your players. And you have to cultivate like real relationships. And myself and our coaching staff, I think we do a tremendous job of that. It doesn't mean that there's no possible way on any team for every player to be happy. I mean, that's just a reality. But I think our culture is as strong as there is across the board in terms of what we try to push guys to be, and to help them maybe with perspective, if you will.
I hate to interrupt you, but you just cut out and we missed a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
of that. Do you
Oh,
mind?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mind just repeating? I think we
Yep.
got to. I was able to hear you were talking about how you built relationships. They have you have some of the best culture across the country in the locker room, and then it started to cut out
Yeah.
from.
Yeah. So absolutely, within our culture, we try to, just make sure guys understand exactly like what it is they need to improve on. And we're going to keep attacking that. And even if they may not be in the mix today or tomorrow, we're going to show them the things that they need to do to get in the fold, and try to be clear and concise with that direction. And I think if you do that, and the players know that you are actively recruiting for each and every one of them to maximize their success, then I think that you can keep everybody as connected as humanly possible. And it does not mean we're perfect, because we're not. No program is, but I think myself and our other coaches, all of our assistants, support staff, they do such a great job with that, because you need everybody, pulling on the same rope.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that kind of segues into this question. I mean, what's some of the biggest things that you've been able to learn from the people around you, whether it's the players or the other staff, that's led to the amount of success you've had? Because, like Nate said, throughout the first 3 years of your coaching tenure, you had the most wins out of any Troy head coach. And in the first 2 years of that, actually, no, last year in 2023, the 77 games you guys won were the most since 2006 and 2007. So there's a clear culture shift, like you said. And I mean, what have you been able to take away from the guys that have already been there, kind of laid the seeds of that culture? And how have you been able to develop that and like really maximize that?
And I think number one, you got to obviously, we believe our culture leads to winning. Winning's not going to lead to the culture, but you got to have good players. And we've done a good job. My assistants, especially, just we all have attacked recruiting and identifying who's going to be a good fit in our program. And so that is first and foremost. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you can only do so much on the pure coaching side.
Yeah.
But, I think what I've really, like, I guess, learned, I mean, the players, and when you just openly communicate, you learn how important, like, constant messaging is, being clear and concise with expectations. It's probably been a shift for me. As you become a head coach, like, you're the one that's always speaking to the room. And I always felt as just the, quote unquote, just a pitching guy. You're the head coach of the pitchers and you're communicating to them. But, you learn when you do become a head coach, like, what you message and how you are on a day in, day out basis, like, it's going to be reflective in your players and in how they perform and how they adapt. And so you always want to try to be on point with anything and everything that you do. And, having some older players in our program, the Gary Gaines's, the Grayson Stewarts, who have been through, every year, 22, 23, 24, and then this year in 25, those guys are really special, and that they can sometimes, give you a laugh or give you like a head shake when you're kind of going into something. And even if it's something that maybe doesn't hit, they can kind of look at you and go, hey, I understood what you meant, but I bet a couple of guys maybe didn't. And so it's important to have older players like that are totally bought in, just as those guys. And they're not the only ones, but they're certainly the ones that have been with us the entire duration of our time.
Yeah, for sure. Nate, I know you.
Yeah, I want to talk about kind of last summer. Yeah, after your season, you get offered to be the 2024 Collegiate USA Baseball Team pitching coach. Can you take us through some experiences with that? Not everyone gets to do that. It's something really special to represent your country. So, is there any way you could talk us through that? Some experience you had there?
Man, it was way cooler than I even maybe envisioned. Certainly being asked by Eric Campbell and USA and Jose Vasquez, who's been just a super guy to become friends with, the head coach at Alabama State. Having those guys ask me was certainly cool. Then getting to experience that with our catcher here, Brooks Bryan, made it even more a unique experience. But I think for me, just really going over and enjoying the process. I mean, it was a 2-week deal where we obviously traveled around the Carolinas. And played 8 games, again 5 against Taipei, and then another 3 with the younger group, the quote unquote development team that a lot of them will be the collegiate national team this year. But just observing what the guys do, and I certainly didn't go over there with any sort of hey, I'm going to be this pitching guy that's going to tell you what to do or anything of that nature. That would have been outrageous move by me. I mean, I just tried to see what Jamie Arnold and Tyler Bremner and Tyson Witherspoon, what those guys were doing, and then talk to a Patrick Forbes or a Tucker Biven, and just to kind of listen to their process or see how Gabe Davis had really improved over his time, or you just, and even the position players too. I tried to just enjoy it. Hang around those guys, go around in the outfield and just pick their brains a little bit, and then the experience was so enhanced for me as a coach, just because we had such a great group of coaches, with Kier Meredith and Coach Calvi and Mac at Florida Atlantic. Like, I mean, it was the best guys possible. Brady Austin, young up and coming coach. Like, you have such a cool experience, and USA Baseball does it right. I mean, the way they treat the players, the way they feed the players, the gear that the guys get, the hotel amenities. Man, it's really, really cool. And I was very fortunate to get to do it. And if I was ever asked again, I would certainly jump on board without any hesitation.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like, especially to share that with the catcher, Brooks. If he's, I told him, he responded to my story. I posted out. He said, "Goat." I said, come say what's up." If he sees it, he might. But yeah, just to have that experience with one of your players as well, but to also get to pick the brains and learn from the other top players in the country and get to see what they're kind of doing. It's just something that you can't really even put into words. It's the talent around you, that especially even the young kids, the knowledge that they have, the knowledge that they're accumulating from everyone else. So yeah, brings a lot into the season. Definitely, carries into momentum, taking little things, making adjustments with your guys that you've been able to pick up from their guys.
There's no doubt. It's funny, and some of it's confirmation too, right? Like just from a pure pitching, just like a quote unquote nerding out on pitching. Like we talk a lot about like our tempo. Can we land with a closed front foot? Are we a lean, mobile athlete? Like those type of things. And you look at all the guys that we had over there, and you're like, they checked all those boxes every day, every time they threw a pitch, every time they did spot work. And so it also makes you, I guess, I want to say, feel, but I think is important. It's still as important. Now these guys are all
Uh,
given initial ability than some others, but so these guys have really worked to get there too. And I really appreciated hearing their stories or seeing their evolution. Some of them more than others, but you look at, I mean, my goodness, and I think of like a Kyson and Malachi Witherspoon and what they're doing, and
yeah.
Even a Nate Snead who wasn't the most recruited player coming out of high school out of Wisconsin, and you see what he's doing in Tennessee now, and it makes you kind of appreciate their journeys even more than maybe you did initially from the outside.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on our next topic that I kind of want to talk about, recruiting. I mean, we could dive into this one for a while, but I guess the one question that I kind of want to have to sum it all up, how, with, I guess, the way NIL has been introduced and the transfer portal changes and everything that's happened, how has, I guess, recruiting changed? And if you could put it into, I guess, to condense your answer, if you could put it into like 3 words at first and then, expand on that.
Put it in 3 words, not the same. Yeah, I won't go long-winded on here for you fellows, but it's a totally different world. And to me, I think the way that I would maybe answer it to give like a true like coach who's in the mix is if you're not trying to stay ahead of the game and be aware of what's going on or what's ahead of the curve, and you're gonna get past, and there's no reason to complain on any of it. I think there's good and bad to all of what's going on, and even the bad it's not malice, it's not ill intent, it's just part of what it is now. It's a free market, and so I think people have to understand that and appreciate that. But I think in the end too, like, and I sort of hit on this earlier, not connected to this topic, but like you still have to coach your players. You still have to give them knowledge. You still have to create a team environment. And I think the teams that do the best in this country, they are able to balance that while you may, bring in quote unquote hired guns to try to cap off what you think is going to be a great baseball team. If the guys aren't together, they're not rooting for their brothers, then in the end, eventually you're going to have a weak link in that chain. And so I still think you have to go out there, even when, even if you're these schools that have had or will have a lot of, quote unquote money or different things to get players. If you bring in the wrong apples, then it's going to end up going rotten at some point in time.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it definitely speaks to a culture when, you see schools being able to keep the same guys for all 4 years as well. Like you guys have done. Specifically, it's definitely, I think baseball is a little different than some of the other sports, especially with the strength of some mid-major schools and the talent around the country and just how it's a little more well dispersed. But even you see the way kids are getting poached now, it's crazy. So I mean, I know there's stuff that you guys can't talk about, so I'm not gonna keep talking about it, but yeah, I mean, it speaks a lot more, I think, when a team can keep the guys for all 4 years than when a guy is, transferring here and there, or
That's no. What you're saying is one of the biggest things. This past summer, we would utilize in our recruiting process. We would just ask, players and families. We would just say, "Look who stayed." Just look who stayed, and that would be the pitch. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Retainment sometimes is better than procurement. And we believe that, and we're going to continue to dive in that and try to make sure that our players have the best experience. I mean, look, I'm on a bus as I talk to you, and while flying and all these different things may seem glamorous, we try to make sure we travel in a way that is conducive to winning on the road, right? We try to give them freedom. We try to feed them right. Like, all these things count. They all stack up. And I think if you can, have that environment for guys, they're going to be much more willing to say, you know what, I got a good thing here. I need to continue my process of being the greatest college baseball player I can in that given program. And I think if you have more guys than not that feel that way, then you'll be able to have some sort of continuity, which is certainly rare.
For sure. Nate, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't.
I know it's such an interesting subject, just in general. Like the all that comes with it, just with NIL now, with the who can pay players, because it's kind of unclear, but it's just like I said, and like you said, I completely agree with you on the fact that, as many, guys that want to transfer to these big programs, it's the little programs that keep these players and keep the culture that, make these runs and win a lot of games. You see it with schools like yourself, like Southern Miss, some of these other top ranked schools that are winning, UCI. Look at the facts. Like you say, retainment speaks to itself. Now, I want to move on to looking at, as we're through the midway point of the season, we kind of want to end with your outlook on the rest of the season. You know, Obviously the goal is Omaha and the goal is to win the conference. And halfway through that, you guys are sitting in a pretty good spot. In our rankings, I think we had you guys at 20. You guys are right around there everywhere else, and you guys have started off rolling. So talk about that.
Well, I think it's interesting. The handling of attention and things of that nature. I mean, that's a real thing that we've had to discuss and we've had to go through, and we've certainly not been perfect in that process. But at the same token, I think we understand better maybe than we have historically. When I say historically, I really speak to 23 and 24, as this thing's really gotten going. Just how to manifest your destiny better, how to stay a little bit more, I don't want to say purely process oriented, but just how to keep the main thing the main thing. And so we hit on that a lot. We meet on that a lot. We'll have a discussion later before we get into practice and lift tonight on that. But I think what's been wild is kind of all unfold, and I think it's really cool. Look, the three of us are on here talking ball. I think the promotion of our game is getting bigger and bigger, seemingly every month. And I'm all for that. And in the end, I think we have to remember this is entertainment. And, our job is to embrace the fun and whether it be the attention we get, good or bad, right? You gotta have fun in that. And while all of our guys, certainly, I use the example of, hey, you really loved when we beat Mississippi State on the road, and they're playing all these different videos and people say things on you. You also have to understand when you don't come to play well in a game, or maybe you didn't. I don't want. We try to fight this as hard as humanly possible. Maybe you don't respect the day or the opponent as well. And in baseball, more than any sport, you can get got quick.
Yeah.
You also need to understand when those things happen, there's ramifications to that. And I don't say that to put like a burden on our players, but I just think it's a reality. We've gotten a lot of attention, and we're going to get everybody's best shot. So therefore, we have to be different and unique in our preparation. But I love our group. Look, we got our flaws like everybody. We're working like heck to make them better, whether it be pitch execution, some defensive things, making sure some guys are taking their best swings offensively, but our guys absolutely compete. And I know you guys have watched us. We are a fun team to take in a 3-hour part of your day. We'll give you a little bit of everything. We'll show you guys throwing 97. We'll hit some homers. We'll make some mistakes. We'll make some great plays. We're kind of a little bit of everything, which I think in a weird way kind of resonates for a lot of people when they watch us.
Yeah. Actually, before we kind of jump off, I did have I was talking with Nate about the offense. As a pitching coach, you've tapped into the offense quite a bit. Very balanced in your time there. At least this is without this season's stats included as a team. But in your first 3 seasons, you guys stole 202 bases, hit 247 homers. You guys were up there in the top 30 in batting average last year, I'm pretty sure. Top 40 in the year before. I mean, as a pitching coach, you're unlocking the offense here. What's been working, and how have you been able to unlock such a balanced attack? And like you said, a little bit of everything wins you guys ball games because you guys are a real well-rounded squad. And what's it been like, kind of learning to coach an offense?
Yeah, I mean, certainly our assistant, Ben, who runs our offense and handles our hitters, is as good as there is in college baseball. And, he knows how to really challenge and work our guys. And, we've had some guys on the base running side that have really done some unique things. And,
Yeah.
We give our guys freedom to play. But I think our guys really understand, and I think this is probably the most imperative part to your question. They really understand team offense. In the end, our job is to produce runs, and there's a lot of different ways. And guess what? Each day presents different challenges, whether it be the opposing pitcher. You play in a place like Troy, there's a lot of different wind that you get. Sometimes it's blowing out at 30. A day like yesterday, it was blowing in. So how are we going to differentiate ourselves? And in the end, you got to be tough, right? Toughness is being disciplined to the strike zone, taking HBPs, knowing when the time is to take your best swing. And I think we perpetuate those messages. In the end, like for us offensively, I'm a supporter, and I give maybe a 5 to 8%, input on certain things. Hey, is this guy okay? Is this guy seeing this? He looks to be struggling with this. It's certainly, I don't feel, even though I'm the head coach, like it's not my job to be in there. And I don't tell, nor have I ever told a position player, hey, here's what you're doing with your swing. They don't need extra voices. Hitting's hard enough. And so, I think our messaging across the board with all of our coaches is really probably coming to such a great spot. All my assistants, my newest one, Ryan Feynman and Coach Godwin and Ben, we've all been together now for 4 years. I think we all kind of know, how to message to players, or who's good talking to this guy, or hey, this guy needs a different voice for today. I think a lot of that goes a long way, and especially when you ask about offense, because let's be honest, it's such a finicky thing, right? A guy goes 3 for 4, he thinks he's the greatest thing on earth, and the next day he goes 0 for 5 with 4 Ks. It's like, which guy is he? Well, he's probably right there in the middle, and we need to make sure that we just kind of keep that person balanced. And I think as a coach, the way you do that is you make sure that you don't ride the wave too hard, right? Like you're there for them, you give them what they need, but you can also still, in this day and age, like I said, you can still give them some tough love and tell them the truth too.
Yeah, for sure. I think I just wanted to bring up the offense as you mentioned it, the all-around attack. That was one thing I forgot. I don't think I have anything else that was on my mind. Nate, do you have any other questions? Do you have anything? Come on. Oh, no. Actually, I was gonna say I had a question, but I want to ask Brooks this question when we get him on. So we'll save it. Thank you, Coach Meade, for coming on. Any last words you have for anybody watching? We always let our guests do this.
Absolutely. No, look, Troy Trojans are a lot of fun to watch. Anybody on here, if you haven't seen us, you gotta check us out. We are riveting, if nothing less. But no, I'm excited for you guys, as you guys are, get in here and promote, like I said, promoting the game and promoting the players, which I think is really important. I'm not sure how many guys you guys have had on to this point. I know I cross-checked and seen a couple, and certainly the Brooks Bryans of the world are awesome. They're awesome kids. They're amazing teammates. They're certainly special players. It does take a trained eye to see that, but I just think it's really cool that we got players, and when I say we, I actually mean that literally. Even here at Troy, that are household names in college baseball, and I think the more we can promote our product, which is probably the best growing product in college sports, certainly. But if we promote our guys properly, then that's going to parlay to success as they embark on their professional journeys. But it's also just going to bring more eyes to the table as we get into May, and obviously our hopes are that we get to play June baseball. when people know who the people are in there, whether it's players, coaches, whatever, I think it just provides a better connection, and you guys are helping do that. So I very much appreciate y'all for that.
We appreciate the words. That means a lot.
Mhm.
It's great to hear that. Definitely a little bit of an ego boost for us, but also good to motivate us to keep us, doing this. It's something fun for us every day. I mean, this is 3 days in a row now. We've been filming an episode, and we're ready to do a lot more for you guys next week. We'll have a lot more episodes coming out, and we'll definitely get Coach Meade back on. We'll do something in person. We'll get out to Troy. All of the above.
Heck yeah, we got to get you. We got to get you all in Doubles Alley. You might not survive, but you'll certainly have a good time while doing it.
Oh, we'll get there for sure. We'll survive it. But we also need a tryout day at Troy. Nate and
Hey,
I
we'll see.
Nate,
We'll see what we can make happen.
we'll do it for sure. We'll come down and get the we'll do it. Put us through it. Put us through a
Heck,
gauntlet for a day and we'll see what we can do.
heck yeah.
Thank you for
Well,
coming on, Coach. Everybody, be sure to follow him on Instagram. It will be in the description. Not much of an Instagram guy, but you can find him there. You can find him on ESPN Plus. That's where you'll really see them at every weekend and in the midweeks. Go watch them. Electric baseball. And that's all I got for you guys. Thank you guys for watching.